Matt, hope you had a good birthday. We're back at the lounge, and this week I want to do something fun. We've been working a lot on the basics that I realize for a lot of people are super boring. This week I want to finally do something that we can say is fun. But first, let's go over what we did last week. Brief review. Started by going over again what is a scale. We started with the A major scale. What are the notes in the scale? The numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the scale. The pattern, key, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. The fact that it looks a lot, that key, whole, whole, half pattern looks a lot like a piano, that if you start on the C key, but that you can apply that same visual to any pattern. Start at A, jump over a black key, jump over a black key, skip to the next white. The next white key has no black key in between. Skip, 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 and step. Okay? Now that we've talked about scales, and we talked about how to play it on, we talked about a pattern that uses 3 notes per string and goes on indefinitely, and every diatonic pattern, including the major scale, follows this. We said if you start here, you can start at the root note. If you start here, then you can back off from that, and if you start with your ring finger on the root note, it would be here, and then by implication, if you start with your pinky on the root note, go with this pattern right here. Okay. All right. Applying that pattern anywhere on the fretboard is something that you can do in your time. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what can you do with a scale. And a couple of things in particular that I want to go over. Number one, I'm going to improvise over a drone. We're going to drone on the root note and just improvise playing the scale. All right? And number two, and this I think is going to be the most fun for you, is when a scale converts into chords, what kind of chord progressions can we do using only the notes in the scale? All right? And I think that'll be enough for this video. Let's start by improvising over a drone. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate now playing over a drone. What is a drone? A drone is a tone that plays continuously. You can think about it as there's a sustain pedal on the piano, and if you play a note and then hit the sustain, it's supposed to stay going until it decays off. Now on a guitar, on an electric guitar, this is going to be it's going to be easier on an electric guitar than on an acoustic guitar. I don't have a solution for you, but on an electric guitar we have things. I have this pedal. This is a freeze pedal, and if I play a note and then I click on that pedal, it's going to keep whatever I was playing. If I was playing a chord, if I was playing just a note, this is a freeze pedal. It's kind of expensive, but I use it for practicing, especially when I'm going over scales and I want to practice playing a scale over something, a tone or a chord. In this case, I'm going to be playing I have an amplifier that has some functionality that one of them includes a looper. So you can play a chord progression and then it'll keep playing it back. In this case, I am one note, and I'm going to record that for 1 beat and let it play back that 1 beat continuously. All right, here we go. Okay, I'm going to do the A major scale, and that's to refresh your memory. Actually, to refresh my memory. Okay, now let's do a drone. I'm going to hit just the lowest A that I've got. Just that one. I'm going to want to try and sustain that for as long as I can. Ready? Record, stop. Hear that? You can hear it play each time, but I'm using that as kind of a metronome. Now I'm going to just noodle over. All right. That was just walking a scale. Let's do something a little more fancy. That sort of thing. And you can, that's noodling over a drone. And it was a little slower than I would have liked. I would have liked to have done a little faster, but you know, it was fine. And I started with something familiar, and then I moved on to something that I hadn't done before, and I thought I'll throw in a 16th note here or there, and it was fine. So that's something that I like to do once in a while. All right, that's playing over a drone. Now, let's talk about chord progressions. Okay, the question I want to answer is, what kind of chord progressions can we throw together using only the notes of the major scale? Right? The 1, the 2, the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. None of the ones that are in between. All right? And to do this, I'm going to start by switching gears. Let's go over notes again, but this time I want to do the key of D. So I'm going to draw 12 spaces. This is how I do it in my notation that uses 12. It's like a ring of 12 notes. We're going to start on D. This one is going to be D sharp or E flat. We're going to skip that one and go to E. This one's going to be F. So because this one's going to be F and we take this one, that means that we're going to be using F sharp. So I know that we're doing sharp notation. So this one that we're not using is D sharp. And this one that we're not using is F. F sharp. We are going to use G. We're not going to use G sharp. And we are going to use A. Not A sharp, B, not C, C sharp. So using just D, whole, E, whole, F sharp, half, G, whole, A, whole, B, whole, C sharp, and half D. Using just those notes, what can we do? All right. Now, for the first chord, I'm just going to start with D, and I'm going to take every other note in the scale. I'm not going to take E. I'm going to take F. So, sorry, F sharp. So, for the first one, which by the way, D is number 1, E is number 2, F sharp is number 3, G is number 4, number 5 is A, number 6 is B, and number 7 is C sharp. So if I just take 1, 3, and 5, we already know that one. D, F sharp, and A. That is D major. All right? That's the first chord. The second chord, number 2, is going to be E, G, and B. E, G, and B. What chord is that? Well, it's an E something. In this case, it's a minor, because from E to G, there's only 1, 2, 3 half steps. And from G to B, there's 4 half steps, and we know that pattern is a minor. So D, E minor. What's the third chord you can make? Well, you start at the 3 note, you get an F sharp, A, C sharp. What's that? Well, that's a jump of 3 half steps and 4, so that's going to be F sharp minor. What's the fourth chord? The fourth chord is going to be G, A, sorry, not G, A. So it's going to be G, which is the fourth number. Sixth is going to be B, and the eighth, or the first, same thing, is D. So G, B, D, and that is G major. Again, you can see that this jump is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, and then 1, 2, 3 half steps. So a 4 and a 3 is a major, but a 3 and a 4 is a minor. All right, let's keep going. Number 5. For number 5, let's see, I'm going to zoom out here so we can see it all. Okay, for number 5, we've got A, C sharp, and E. A, C sharp, and E. That's a jump of 4 half steps and 3, so that's an A major. What's the 6th? The 6th is going to be, starting on the 6th, you're going to have a B, a D, and an F sharp. B, D, F sharp. What's that? Is that a major or minor? Well, that's a 3-step jump and a 4-step jump. That is a minor, so that's its B minor. Finally, here we go. The 7th. What is the 7th? We're going to start on C sharp to E and then G. What's that? Well, that is a 1, 2, 3 step followed by a 1, 2, 3 step. That is not a major. That is not a minor. In order to be a minor, it would have to be 3 half steps and then 4 half steps. It would need not the G, but the G sharp to be a C sharp minor. It is not a C sharp minor. This is a different kind of chord that we have not experienced yet. It's less common than majors and minors. This is C sharp diminished. Okay? Those are the chords. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Another way that they can write that is, instead of saying the 1 chord, when we talk about the 1 chord in the D major scale, that's going to be D major, but we can also write it in Roman numerals. Majors, we write in capital Roman numerals. Minors, we write in lowercase. 3. This is the 3 chord. The 3 chord is a minor. The 2 chord is a minor. The 1 chord is a major. The 4 chord is a major. The 5 chord is a major. The 6 chord is a minor. And the 7 chord is neither one. It's diminished, but it's got more in common with minor than it does with major. So we're going to say use lowercase and have a circle for diminished. Okay? Now, if you have a chord progression that is made up of these chords, you can just call them by these names. You could say the 1 chord, or the 4 chord, or the 5 chord. All right? That would help you sort of change the pattern over to a new key easily. You could write something in the key of E and know that it takes a 4, 5, 1 chord progression, and you just write out the 4, the 5, and the 1 in E, and it's going to be, instead of G, A, and D, it's going to be A, B, and E. So using this vocabulary, using these symbols, you can express very complicated chord progressions very simply. You can tell a musician, hey, let's go to the 5 chord. Let's go to the 4 chord. Okay? You might have heard that chord progressions that are very common tend to use the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 1. This is what they mean. In D, they mean chord progressions in D are often going to use G, A, and B minor. Okay? Here, I hear a bit more that you hear in E minor. I really don't hear an F sharp minor very often. And this diminished chord, we haven't even really used it yet. You and me, I mean. We haven't really utilized the diminished chord. All right? But we're going to talk about it anyway. So what do these chords sound like? Well, we're in the key of D, so I'm going to play the 1 chord first. That's the 1 chord. The 2 is E minor. The 3 chord. The 4 chord. The 5 chord. The 6 chord. Now the 7 chord is the diminished chord. What'd you think about the diminished chord? Here's how I make the diminished chord. I've got the C sharp, so it's the C sharp diminished, and I start here, and then that's the 5th string and the 4th fret, and then from here I go down a string, up a fret, and then I make a little D chord pattern that sits right underneath it. So 5th fret, 4th string, 6th fret, 3rd string, 5th fret, 2nd string, and so it sounds like this. Do you hear there's something a little unsettling about that? Like you can't rest here. It's driving you somewhere. I'm not playing the E on top or the E on the bottom either. I'm just playing those middle 4 strings. That's the sound of a diminished chord. It's not resolved. There's a conflict there. Ah, that was not good. Let's try that again. Hear that? That's what diminished is good for. Diminished is good for having a conflict that resolves into your tonic. All right. Now, this is, I'm going to now write a very famous chord progression in D major that you have heard, and we're going to play again, but we're going to use this as an exercise so that we can convert it from D major to any chord by writing the chord progression using these symbols. Okay? Here is that famous chord progression. A famous chord progression starts with D, A, B minor, F sharp minor. Okay, now let me think. G, D, G, A. Now let me play that to make sure that I got it right, because I was going by memory alone. Let's try it. All right, let's see if I got it right. See if my memory served. Ready? D. You know it, don't you? That's Pachelbel, and famously it's been used in a lot of pop tunes. It's a chord progression that is very commonly appropriated for our own ends. Now, if we take the number system we've got up here, and we try and translate Pachelbel to it. There we go. Let's try this. So D, that's just the 1 chord. A is the 5 chord. B minor is the 6. F sharp minor is the 3. G is the 4. D is the 1, G is the 4 again, and A is the 5. Okay? All right, just some final thoughts to go over. What we went over today was we went over what is a scale and what is a scale good for. And started out with playing over a drone, improvising over a drone, but staying inside the scale. Next, we said what happens if we stay inside the scale, but we want a chord progression. And so we went over what are the chords that are open to you if you just stick to the scale notes. And we kept it only to 3-note chords. Those are called triads. And for those triads, we came up with 7 chords that you can play. Then I showed you a chord progression that is a very famous chord progression that stays within the scale all the time. Does that mean you always have to stay in the scale whenever you write a chord progression? No, it does not. In fact, next time, I think I'd like to discuss some chord progressions that go outside of the scale and yet still sound fantastic. Because there are certain patterns that will emerge, and there are certain patterns we can look for and we can listen for that make them interesting and make them wonderful. but it's still often the case that you'll end up coming back to these chords sometime. You go on a journey and you'll find yourself back in the 4 chord or the 5 chord or the 6 chord or the 1 chord. And I really can't wait to talk about that, because that to me is where it gets really fun. All right, talk to you later.